were definitely times I had to restrain myself because there were things that I wanted to change that were big things, and it was too late in the year to do that. Like, you can't change that now. You can't change somebody's sort of attitude. Like, that's the way they are. They're wired that way. We're not going to make a big change in attitude right now. We're not going to make a big change in strokes generally. There's little things we can do, but was almost all focused on building on their strengths.
Welcome to the Social Kick Podcast. I'm Bryan Lundquist. We got a smaller crew, but a quality crew today. Luke Paddington and my college coach, David Marsh. Actually, not just college coach, but also you coached me after a couple of years of pro swimming and up in Charlotte. So, David, thanks coming off of the high of a big win and a reunion for you, but thanks for being on.
Thank you. It was a reunion, and a reunion even emotionally, to go back to an NCAA event. So there was a lot of levels of experience going on over the weekend, and obviously doing it with Dave and doing with a team culture like Cal. It was so much, and I enjoyed the podcast you did with the three different swimmers from the contending teams. Good job on that. That's going to be a classic. I mean, coaches want to show that to their athletes early in the season now to understand more that dynamic of what's going on, because there's some great insight into that.
Three well-spoken guys. Thanks for listening to it. Yeah. So there was something that Durden said in the press conference when I asked him about your presence on deck, and I just wanted to get your insight on it, because what he mentioned was, and keeps speaking directly to me because I asked the question, but saying, hey, Bryan, because the guy knows how to win championships. He's won this meet so many times, but especially this time of year, he sees things. And I'm curious if you know what he meant by that. And if you do, then can you speak to what it is that is so magical about the touch you have, and that what you see this time of year, kind of championship season, sort of after Christmas training?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that had been an evolving strength of mine through my college career, where I could anticipate things before they would happen. So I think one of the key things that I experienced was that the nuances of detail, if you know what I mean. So it has to do with team uniforming. It has to do with logistics of when you travel. It has to do with when you arrive. It has to do with the dynamic of how you utilize your fans and your support staff. It has to do, so it's all these little nuances that end up playing into getting the athletes to be where they need to be at the right time. And I think, like you explained in your opener, I don't plan to think the way I think. I mean, I didn't plan to tell you to nail the start. I was just trying to figure out a way to get you to execute in the moment. And it happens to be that when you're 18, 19, 20 years old and you're at the NCAA Championships, it's the biggest moment of your life in most cases. I mean, so in your swimming career, which most people have done their whole life, it's their biggest moment at that moment. And so how do you sort of create an environment where the athletes can flourish? And that's sort of what I see. And it's funny because Brett Hawk sent me a picture. I sent him a picture one time. It was Richard Quick and me and him. I think it was 7 when Richard was on the deck with us at that time, because he was transitioning to be head coach. And I'm like making a really like intense face like this, and the two of them are completely calm. And I sent to Brett, well, this is a terrible picture of me. I said, what was happening at this moment? He says, once again, you were seeing things we didn't see. So I don't know what that was, but I do, being back in NCAAs and occasionally in the ISL, there'd be moments where you would feel those things and be able to. Sometimes you can do something about it. Sometimes you can't. But it has to do with all the details. The fortunate thing for Dave is he's already a very detailed guy, so it wasn't hard to help him. What I could was able to help him with was more speed, another experienced set of eyes watching the athletes that he coached all year, and I had a fresh eyes on, and saying, is this okay that this is going on? In some cases, he goes, wow, I didn't even realize that was where they were. And so we did a few things to try to shake things up and keep things challenged, and we at some point we decided we're just going to go for it. We're going to try things, and I think part of trying things was for the first 3 or 4 days when I went up to Berkeley, I was checking with him every time I wanted to adjust a stroke or adjust a turn. And then finally, about 4 or 5 days into it, he said, "David, just do it. Just do it. Like, don't need to ask me. You don't need to copy me on the video back to the athlete. Just do it." Like, so it was like, I knew he trusted me, but at that point, I was able to sort of figure out what I could do to help them get better in 7 weeks, and in some cases only 3 weeks before the conference meet. But it was a lot of fun. I sort of, my brain operates really well when it's on overload, and it likes chaos, and I sense calmness during chaos. I think it's my ADD that's just like when I fire caffeine down in the morning to get it where it needs to be. I'm at my best, I think, when there's a lot of things going on.
I was going to say, don't underestimate how delicate the situation had to be for you to have succeeded so well in such a short space of time. You're talking about fifth-year seniors who had never met you, maybe some of them.
Yeah.
And you are coming into a program. You've had to have the trust and the belief mutually in the communication and your experience to know how far to push, when not to push, what to add, because you can really do a lot of damage as well at that point in the season. So it's a very delicate situation, and kudos to, it shows the trust and between the two of you more than anything, and your experience and Dave's experience. So,
well, and some restraint. I mean, there are definitely times I had to restrain myself because there were things that I wanted to change that were big things, and it was too late in the year to do that. Like, you can't change that now. You can't change somebody's sort of attitude. Like, that's the way they are. They're wired that way. We're not going to make a big change in attitude right now. We're not going to make a big change in strokes generally. There's little things we can do, but was almost all focused on building on their strengths. I mean, like Daniel Carr, for example, I sort of played with his breakout and backstroke to try to get him to do a two-handed breakout rather than just a one. He did a one, then two instead of the double breakout. And that's something we played with. So there's athletes that I might take one thing like that, a lot of turn work. When I first got to Berkeley, I assumed we'd be swimming in flat wall pads like we always have at Georgia Tech. So I actually brought a flat wall pad from San Diego up to Berkeley. They didn't have one, and I put it in. I'm like, you guys got to learn how to turn on this thing because this is way different than turning on a gutter wall. And as it turned out, the women's meet, they changed it to lower the gutters for the first time ever at Georgia Tech, which, by the way, is partly why you saw such fast times, because the gutters, the pads were down at the gutter level, so waves are blowing through. They weren't getting stuck they weren't bouncing back off the wall.
Right, I remember that, but I did not notice that at NC's. Yeah.
Well, okay, there's your example of things I noticed that others may not notice. I mean, literally, before the meet, I was looking at there's a gray line, a gray line that looks like a turning lane it looks like about 15 meters. Yeah. And I walked over and they have a laser camera right now at 15 meters, and I see this line is about lined up with 15 meters, and I'm walking around going, this doesn't look right on 50 meters. This is weird. What is this thing here for? It's not for a 15-meter mark, because there's not a mark the other way. There's not a mark going into the wall the other way. So this can't be that. I'm not sure why this is here. It might be if the pool's set up for 25 meters in the middle of the pool or something. But anyway, so I went all the way up to the highest person at the facility, and finally they didn't even know. When I asked, what's this line for? They're like, we don't know. I said, is it a 15-meter line? We don't know. I'm like, well, we need to know that because these guys are going to come, if they're going to use it, they're going to come up on that line. And it was about 15 meters, and I think about 3 inches. It was a little bit beyond 15 meters. And I'm like, I need to know this if this is here. And so I had to go up to, literally nobody had asked the question, the entire women's or men's to that point.
Wow.
And I'm like, we need to know this because I think everybody assumed that gray line was 15 meters. I'm guessing. And we did use it. We just told people, look, it's a little bit beyond 15 meters, but you can use it as a mark to come up, make sure you're up.
Yeah. Hey, do you think college coaches should have like the NFL challenge flag in their sock if they see somebody go past 15? Throw a flag in the pool?
I think, honestly, Bryan, anything we can do to make our sport more interesting would be a good thing. I think, honestly, if you can put on boxing gloves or do rock, paper, scissors when there's ties. I don't know. Honestly, we need to do more things having done the ISL for 3 years and seeing what is possible to bring a little bit more life to our sport, watching the Formula One show, getting to know the athletes and seeing the interesting storylines. And that's a pretty boring sport too, right? They just turn. They don't really, they turn and they wreck. We don't wreck as much, but we turn a different way, but we got to figure out ways to make our sport more interesting.
Well, let's talk about that. Good.
Go ahead.
I've been lucky to be on at the Rio Olympic Games, at the Sydney Olympic Games. Sydney at the time had the largest attendance, 20,000 people in the audience. Rio was exciting when the Brazilians swam. You were there when Thiago was swimming. I was lucky. I watched ISL on TV, and it was exciting. But it was all NCAA was my first meet as a spectator.
Oh wow!
And it was everything I hoped it would be and more. It was shattering. It was. I don't think you need to be a swim fan to feel what you felt there. They give you time to enjoy the moments. You heard the passion in the spectators, not just the swimmers. You saw the coaches' reactions that was so genuine, more than the ISL. And I really do think the NCAA is underrated. It's known, obviously, by American swimming well, and some people in Europe have an idea. But we need to take this meet to somewhere else. And elements of the ISL for sure, elements of what the Olympics can bring for sure. But do we add world records to yards? Because we didn't have world records in short course meters for the longest while. Or do we call them world best at least? There's so much we can do. And talk to me about that. What do you think is missing after being away for 15 years, spending 3 years in the ISL, hitting a few Olympic games, being a swimmer and a coach in all these big meets? What's your dream?
Well, I think the biggest thing is we've got to somehow engage the non-swimming audience of the world, the sports person, because obviously we're getting them during the Olympics somehow or another with our storylines, with our performances, with the understanding of what our Olympic sport is. We're getting that, but what we're not doing is getting them outside the Olympic Games, not in any measure compared to what we get at the Olympics. That's partly because of several things, but when it comes to the NCAA, I think the number one, by far, biggest thing is the date of it. Yeah. Now, if you're coming up with an NCAA sport and you want to make sure it gets no coverage and gets overshadowed by something, what are the two things you wouldn't put it on top of? The national championship football game, right? Probably not. And you wouldn't put it during the final, basketball, the Sweet 16, 8 selection, 4 selection. You don't put anything on those weekends that you want to draw any attention, because the attention of the United States is taken. And it's taken by the exact format that we're offering in swimming. And that format being, you perform at a certain level all year, you work on qualifications, and you finally get qualified, you combine as a team, and you walk into the NCAA Championships as a combined NCAA team with a team goal to accomplish that team goal for your institution. And it doesn't matter how you did in any meet before that. At that point, you forget everything, just like they do in the basketball tournament. It doesn't matter how you did all year. All that matters is I made it into the final 64. Now I'm in the Sweet 16. Now I'm in the 8. And unfortunately, St. Peter's didn't make it all the way through. But sometimes it's a Cinderella. We don't have as many Cinderellas in swimming. But doggone it, we get here and now we compete. Well, unfortunately, when you do that on the same weekend as NCAA events are going on, and men's basketball and even women's basketball is getting great coverage right now, we're out. I'm best buddies with Rowdy Gaines, and he's the best announcer of all these sports too. He's making the sport as interesting as he can. But when you're on ESPN3, when you're streaming, on whatever the streaming thing is, you're not getting an audience. And then you go into the interview, and Bryan Lundquist is asking the best questions. It's not NBC. It's not CBS. It's not. I don't care if it's TMZ. Just get some people. Now, I guess the week before the women's meet, there was a lot of stuff over the Leah Thomas stuff. But I'll tell you, typically, and what we need. My calling is after watching an NCAA meet after 16 years of taking a break. And by the way, during those 16 years, honestly, as I coach professionals more and more, I didn't even watch the NCAAs. I didn't pay any attention to the NCAAs. I didn't even watch short course times anymore. So I kind of went away, and I came back with the Berkeley team, and I got back, Luke, into exactly what you explained, that unique excitement that the NCAA has. These 18 to 22-year-old guys that are just completely jacked for this one moment. It's the most important thing for most of them that's ever happened in their life at that minute, at that moment. And they're going in, and they're a pack, and they're going to compete together as a brotherhood. And to not capture that and show that to the world, show that at least to the United States audience, and it's a storyline that everybody understands. On the women's side, I'm sure it's the same thing as well. The men's side this past week, it absolutely was palpable how much I felt being in the experience. And I probably would have felt it in the audience, but obviously being in the deck and being on one of the teams that was competing for the championship, I felt it a lot more. But we have to move it to February, move it to January, move it to April, move it to May, move it to June. I don't care when, but it's got to move. Can't be on this weekend, guys. And coaches have to get over the tradition of it being on this weekend. The committee has to allow it to be placed on a place like women's softball, for example, who gets incredible coverage on ESPN, week after week, game after game after game, shows the intimate details of the game. And Luke, I hope what we can do too is, get cameras, mic up the coaches. Get cameras in the team box areas, like they do at the ISL. And you'll get a lot. You might have to bleep out some things, but you're going to get a lot of exciting moments.
But that makes us care. First of all, that brings us on deck with you. But I also need to know the characters. Any story, you need to know the characters. Otherwise, I don't give a dang about the story. So I need to know these characters. I need to do some backstories on them. Let me know who they are. And then not only the stars. I don't need to know about Kieran. I need to know about that Cal guy who won consoles, swimming out his mind, Lauser. That was a turning point, momentum change. But if that was explained by somebody who can say, dude, you know what you just did? You just fired up Hugo by what you just did there. And that turned the tide for Cal and won the championship. In my opinion, that was a big turn.
Awesome. I love that you picked out that moment, because I worked with J-Lo a lot. And the only thing that guy was missing is confidence, man. There's one moment where this is one of those guys I saw at practice one day. And I'm like, why aren't you one of the best swimmers in the world? Like I said, why aren't you one of the best swimmers in the world? I don't understand. Because first of all, you have 4 beautiful strokes. Yeah. You train your ass off, and you're 6'8" or whatever, 6'7". You're giant. Like, we don't have this. Like, and I just said, come on. And the thing was about his backstory is he didn't race last year, so he is a great swimmer. He was a great recruit and all that kind of stuff. But still, you're right. I love that you picked that up, Luke, because that was a lot of momentum when he popped that and did that. I mean, Liam Bell from Atlanta, Georgia, right? Yes. I mean, just transferring in from Alabama and going nuts in NCAAs after, having a season of not knowing where he's going to be, not where he's going to be. And he does 22.7 on the medley, 50.5. Then he wins consoles in a 200 breast. I mean, these are the stories that are super interesting.
And celebrate amazing swims in a way that we understand. We know what Luke Orlando did in that 100 back. A, how he did it, and B, what he did. But that's us. We are watching it already. Explain that this is the fastest that any human has ever swum 4 laps in a pool like this.
Yeah. It's
they
nuts.
Explain that. It's as simple as that.
You also got to show that underwater. You got to go back and review that. Say, here's what happened here. And they don't have the technology there to do that. But we don't have the attention of the world. And the problem is not just for our sports getting support and not being dropped, because that's part of the factor here is that we're getting dropped because there's not that much interest. There's what we need to have is the ability to have athletic directors care. When do they care? They care when more people are letting them know they care. And whether that be alumni, friends, fans, people in the neighborhood, those are things that happen. I know when I was building the thing at Auburn, I spent a lot of time sending notes out to deans of school, out to social organizations on campus. I'd send the swimmers out to fraternities and sororities to talk about our sport. We did all our own promoting in the early days, and it was part of just really getting people to care. So ultimately, hopefully the AD would care, the board of trustees would care, and eventually they did care.
Dave, I want to take it back. They call me a historian on the show. They're like, some of our passwords is about how old I am. I want to go back to you as a swimmer, because I think I'm interested to see how it affected you as a coach and what lessons you learned as a swimmer. For those who don't know, and you were Olympic trials, 100 backstroke, 200 IM, 200 back. You get DQ'd in the 200 IM, 200 back, finish low down, but in your 100 back, you qualified third for finals. You're in lane 3. Next to our boy, big smiley, happy world champion, Bob Jackson, right? So you're in lane 3, your third qualifier back then, top 3 make Olympics. You come 6th. Your time, if you swim a little bit faster, you would have made a team, right? How did you deal with that? And do you reflect on those moments in your coaching when you go see athletes going through the troubles, going through hard times at NCs who don't have the great swims? Talk about how those teaching moments helped you.
I can't believe you just did that much research and figured that much out about me, because I don't remember. I literally don't remember I did the 200 IM trials.
Yeah, DQ'd. I was like, DQ'd.
I got DQ'd, of course. I don't know what I was trying to do. Probably some weird breaststroke thing. But no, I would say yes, there's no doubt that my swimming experience had a lot to do with how I coach now, how I view the sport now. But I was a really super late bloomer. I didn't swim until 10th grade. I wasn't a good swimmer until I went to Any River Community College first, then went to Auburn. And at Auburn, I was the 5th backstroker when I arrived. But I did have a role model in Rowdy Gaines. Mm-hmm. And in 1980, when Jimmy Carter elected to boycott the Olympics because the Russians were misbehaving, this isn't the first time the Russians have been misbehaving. They're misbehaving back then too. It shouldn't shock anybody. The team at a moment in Rowdy would know the day, but it was sometime in late April or early May when we were told that we would not be going to Olympic Games one way or the other. Reality was my big passion to make the Olympic team at that moment slowed down. It's almost to a stop, So I can't tell you. I mean, Luke at qualifying 3rd and then getting 6th would normally probably be traumatic, and you want to make sure no mistake ever happens again. I can't say that happened in this case, because my biggest, almost my whole team's biggest concern immediately became Rowdy. I mean, Rowdy was going to win 5 gold medals if he swam slow. He could have swum a slow 100 and 200 and won it and been on 3 relays. He was going to win. He was going to be the golden boy of the 80 Olympics, 100% for sure. It was done. He was so amazing at that moment in time. And so I think that's where sort of my experience of that 1980 window happened. I, on the other hand, was swimming for Tim Shedd that summer. I was actually lifeguarding and only training once a day. So I actually was, farting around, eating hamburgers after practice. I wasn't super serious, but I'd done a lot of work with Jim Montreal and Richard Quick over the years. So I had a lot of background. Back those days, we used to do a lot of background work. If you think you do aerobic work now, no, we did a lot of sets of 8-400s and things like that gave us a lot of background. So I was living on a lot of background. So when I went to trials, and I did go that 57.3, which ended up being 6th in the world that year. Right. And I'm very proud of that. But I was also in sort of semi-retirement mode. But let me go back to what your question is really, which is taking your swimming experiences and moving it to the next thing. So for me, my experiences were how I experienced the sport. How I experienced the sport was life-changing. I mean, it's where I found my personal confidence. It's where I found a brotherhood of friends that I have to this day. My best friends are my Auburn buddies that I swam with. It's where I found my identity as a person. I wasn't good at a lot of things, pretty good swimmer. And then as soon as I became a coach, I'm going to be a great coach, not an average coach. I'm going to be a great coach. So Richard Quick took me around to the best coaches in the world and says, pay attention to this, pay attention to that, pay attention to this. And, he helped me evolve quickly. And so at 30 years old, when I took over the Auburn program, I was probably way more prepared than most people at 30 years old to do that kind of thing. And I had the passion and drive. So no doubt that my process of coaching, I've enjoyed more than my process of swimming, because I feel like my skill set and how I can impact has a greater and more profound effect than it did as my one person swimming, up and down the pool. I mean, that was great days, but I love coaching way more.
I feel the same as you. I used to enjoy seeing my colleagues. The comment you made about Rowdy and your concern for Rowdy being your primary concern in 1980 and not your trials is so. Why are you into coaching? I mean, you of course you enjoyed winning, but you enjoyed making others succeed in life tenfold. So
No doubt.
that's expensive. Thank you.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's what's so fun, honestly, about the Cal experience when I was there with Cal, because I do think there's some guys like J-Lo and Marco and Bjorn even that I felt like, I could give some of my sort of attention to, and just reinforcement that, like, dude, you're really good, like really good. Believe in it. I'm like, I sometimes I use this. I said, look, I'm an expert. Believe me, believe me, you can trust me. I know what I'm talking about. I'm an expert. So trust me, you're good. So go.
Oh, we certainly got a sense talking to Bjorn. They do trust you. They recognize you're an expert. So there's a resume is one thing, but experiences with someone really cements that. So those guys trust you in a really short period of time, which is pretty awesome. I wanted to ask you, like, Auburn's on my mind when I ask this, but it's not specifically about Auburn. But obviously, they're kind of in the phase of total rebuild, and I think Ryan did a nice job in the first year. I had some texts with him, but you took over an Auburn program that was a total rebuild and had to go through a process. And I'm curious, just based on your experience and insights, obviously watching some other coaches do it as well. What do you think some of the key steps are for any program, not specifically Auburn, to make strides in rebuilding, especially if they already have the resources? We're not talking about like getting funding or scholarships or pool or any of that. Like, assume that they have the resources, but the program's in a downturn. What are some of the things that you think are really foundational to get it to take off again?
I think a coach, the head coach, has to have the confidence, experience, and ability to go into a 10th grader now, I guess they're recruiting 10th graders now, 10th and 11th graders, and explain how they're going to help them win a medal at the Olympics or, qualify for the U.S. Olympic team. That's, at the end of the day, that's the number one dream of most kids. So whether that be because I have 3 amazing assistant coaches, whether that be because I have a perfect facility for you, whether that be because I have Bryan Karkoska as your strength and conditioning coach that'll take care of your physical development, whether that be because, there's, I have psychologists and we give you smoothies after practice or whatever, whatever you can convince, because you have to have the talent, Bryan. Now you get to build a program. You've got to have a percentage of super talent. I'm talking about building top 6 to 8 teams in the NCAA. I'm not talking about building top 25,
right?
Because that can be done with one athlete,
right?
But to build that, to get in the team talk, sort of like you've seen Bob do lately, and you're seeing Mark Gangloff do it at UNC right now. Kind of slowly, but it's happening. So it takes that ability to create that story, then deliver on the story. Because you don't deliver on the story, it's going to be a short-lived story. Then it's all just blah blah talk, and it's all Instagram post and that kind of stuff. But if you're delivering on it and people are improving and the environment's right, and then I think there's a story. I mean, I think part of the story I've tried to emphasize to Dave since I've been there is, Dave, you've got to explain to people that, as you're training people for NCAAs, you're also training them for long course. Because I was shocked when he was swimming 2 times per week long course during taper. I'm thinking, I wouldn't do that personally, but like I was so impressed that he was. And just part of his philosophy. It's like, no, that's what we do. We stretch out the strokes that way. We relax them a little bit. And we're also getting ready for long course. So there's not a big transition. We hit training in the spring. And so it's, and I said, well, that's a recruiting line. I mean, the people need to know that happens, because that doesn't happen most places. I can assure you not many teams are going long course during taper for NCAAs. So it's, I think those are things that you got to build. Behind that, you have to have the understanding of how to build a culture, of course. And, that gets talked about a lot nowadays in sports, how important a culture is. And it is. And a culture means you have to have leadership and people that are the example. You interviewed Bjorn, and he's a young sophomore, but you can see he's a culture creator, right? He's a culture creator. He did care more about the team than about his own performances. In fact, I was kind of ticked at that myself, because I was like, damn it, I want you to win, and he was like, it's okay, next event. I'm like, and so it was I think the culture that you create, you have to have some people that in, and then you have to try to be selective as to who you let into your program, because a few bad apples, maybe even one bad apple at times, can really pull things down. Nowadays, that's one bad apple can go to the AD and get your job from you. So it's, you got to be a little careful as to who you allow on your team, and sort of guard that front door, maybe more so now than ever. And how do you do that when you're evaluating 10th and 11th graders? I don't know how you do that. I'm sort of, that's why people can ask me to get back in it. I'm like, I love the whole thing, except I don't like that stuff. I don't like the compliance meetings. I don't like there's a lot of blah blah meetings that don't have to do with high performance or helping young people excel in life. And that's those are kind of not that interesting to me. Mm-hmm. But I think that one of the things that I would come back to in building a team would be that it's that understanding of how that coach can not sell the recruit, but live and experience, so they can see that your program is actually doing that. And you can do that through Instagram. You can do that through TikTok. You can do that through podcasts like this. But at the end of the day, you need to do it first of all and have a vision for that, and then deliver. And I just talked to Arthur Abiero this week, and right after the meet, he's called me right away. What did you do? What was going on there? What was the inside of that? That's how you keep learning. That's what coaches. That's the responsibility of the head coaches, to be in a constant learning process. I know for me, when I'm around Bob Grosset, and I'm around Peter Lynn, I'm around veterans like that out here in San Diego, I'm just a sponge. I'm learning all the time. And that's my challenge to all not just young coaches, but to coaches who want to excel.
David, how did you sell the NCAA system? You were well known for recruiting internationally. You came to my home pool in Trinidad for the weekend to recruit somebody from Trinidad. But we've spoken to Aussies, Europeans, no interest coming here to swim here. What did you do to get the Brazilians, the French, all the legends that you had? What did you do?
I sold them on their Olympic dream. I told Pat Dye when I took the job at Auburn, I said, Coach Dye, my first thing I'm going to build here is a program where we develop Olympians. And you can see, it's like, what about NCAAs and SECs? Those are the big things. I said, no, that always has to be first, because that's everybody's dream. So that's what we're going to do. And at that time, when I took the job, I didn't have 50-meter pool, not only in the city, I didn't have 50-meter pool in the county. The closest 50-meter pool was over in Columbus, Georgia. But that was still what I said, we're selling, and that's what we're going to present. And then will come NCAAs, and then will come. So that's your answer, Luke, is because I sold. I'm not sure I delivered on as well as I could have. Honestly, when I transitioned from college coaching to pro coaching, part of the reason I did that, a small reason, but one of the reasons for sure, was that I didn't feel like I was producing as a professional coach with the pros as well as because I had all that stuff going on with the college team all the time. And by then, in the 2000s, and I'd been there 17 years, so many more steps you had to go through to be a successful college coach. And it wasn't a lot more meetings, a lot more dealing with assistant coaches, with HR, with different athletes, and each athlete could create hours and hours of time sucks for you by different things, and so it was a whole different atmosphere. I left in 2007 as compared to what it was when I started in 1990. So it's I think one of the big things for me is just that the international athlete, their goal is very clear. They're raised with it. Their goal is, their federation sets it, and it's long course swimming. It's not short course swimming. It's not NCAA swimming. So you better, if you want to be recruiting those guys, you better be selling them the Olympic dream, not the NCAA dream.
I stopped swimming for Trinidad because of my college career. I know it's not a priority for you, and there's an illusion that you swim for NCAAs, and some qualifying trials are in April, Canada or what have you. there's an illusion that that's all you guys care about, you guys being NCAA coaches, and that would inhibit anybody coming. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of the federations tell their athletes. It's like, you don't go because you're taking a huge risk. And honestly, I can't argue with that. I mean, with the amount of time improvement that's happened in short course swimming versus long course swimming, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to convince me that short course yard swimming is really helping long course meter swimming. It isn't automatically happening for sure. It may be happening in places, but it's not happening the same amount.
Mm-hmm. Do you see long course meter swimming continuing to dominate, what matters in terms of relevance and sport history? I mean, like, I just watched the Winter Olympic Games that like half of it looks like the X Games. So and yet we were talking about how exciting short course swimming is because it's explosive and there's popping quick times, and I mean there's appeal to it, but it is sort of a different sport. Do you I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I think it's old fuddy-dud swimming. I mean, I think we need to be open to new concepts for swimming. I think short course swimming is much more exciting. I mean, again, the ISL, probably short course meters is our perfect sweet spot. I mean, yards is a little bit too bouncy. You can bounce off a wall and carry the speed off the wall way too easily. Meters, you have to at least do one more cycle, maybe 33. I love training 33 meters. You know that, Brian. I love 33 meter training. And that's almost a perfect pool, but we're not going to go to 33 meters. But I think the question in terms of that kind of thinking is and I don't think the challenge of our sport moving forward is just a challenge of NCAA. I do think that's part of the NCAA, and I think that's the coaches, the NCAA committee, and it has to do with swimming. We do control. We can request some changes be made, including a date, and be working toward that collectively as an NCAA body, as a swimming body, not the NCAA. We don't have to rely on the NCAA for that, thank goodness. But then you have the FINA organization, you have the IOC. These are bureaucratic institutions that the easiest thing you can do is replicate what you did before, right? So this is what we do. We walk out and 8 across. We take our equipment off. We take our headphones out of our ears. We get our names announced. We wave to everybody, and then we step up and swim. How boring is that? I mean, my goodness. Where's the camera? Where's the conversation? Where's the conflict? Where's the F1? Come on. And we start doing that, we're going to make our sport a lot more interesting. But it's, I do think the ISL was the first great attempt at this. And I don't even think the ISL went far enough. I told Constantine, I felt like he should have been doing a lot more backstories and genuine sort of, when things were coming up, have a camera back there and, interview people as to why they're choosing this or that. And I think it could have brought some more, it can bring some more humanness to our sport, because you don't meet better people than you do around swimming, right? They're just the best people there are. I mean, I love the sport because of the people that are involved, and for the public to get to know who they are, I think only enhances our image and our brand and our value, our value at every level, including our value of supporting athletes as professionals like the ISL was trying to do, but that was still a one-man show. We haven't gotten to where it's a full program yet.
Yep. All right. We got rapid fires to finish off. All right. What's the hardest race in swimming?
The hardest race in swimming is a 200 backstroke.
Long course?
Legs. The legs just you got to fire the legs the whole way.
Yeah. All right. Olympic gold or world record?
Olympic gold.
When you were at your best, who would win heads up, you or Catherine Burkhoff in a 100-yard backstroke?
Catherine Burkhoff, unfortunately, she kicked out. I didn't kick out one kick.
Do you have the best resume of any assistant coach of all time?
Hold on. Oh, I want to say no. Dadgummit.
I think you can.
I had Bob Groseth. Honestly, I probably have the best resume on paper, but I'm sure I'm not the best assistant coach there have been. Dave didn't have to put up with me for a whole season. It was 7 weeks. Come on, if he had to put me through the whole season, I think I'd have been fired probably about 2 months in.
You're getting old now. We don't print resumes anymore.
You're correct.
What was the most impressive swim from NCAAs? Men's or women's?
Most impressive swim for me was, I have to agree with Bjorn Hugo. I mean, just because I was in with him, and I did not see that coming. Honestly, I did not see that coming. That's what was awesome about that swim. It was like when he did it, I was like, that's Hugo. That's the guy that we've seen. And it finally, the beast came out.
It sounds like he didn't even know that was coming. That's the interesting part. So,
well, the conversation we had with him is he was swimming very controlled backstroke. And I said, dude, I sat in European Championships when you won the 100 backstroke medal. I don't even medal or won, but he earned a medal, at least 100 backstroke. You're an amazing backstroker. Why are you floating backstroke? And so, not that was the whole story of it, but his main story was he was I can't think right now. My wife just walked in the room, so when he ended up when Hugo ended up doing that. When he started going on backstroke, he said, either he's going to do something amazing here. And I was down at the far end of the pool. I was being a good assistant coach and pulling stretch cords in the warm-up pool during that swim. I wasn't in the box area. And so I was having fun with just watching from afar. And when he did that in backstroke, I was like, oh my gosh, this may go down right here. And then he throws in a 57 breaststroke. I don't know where that came from either, which with 4 strokes per lap, as somebody pointed out not long ago in the media. But it was a brilliant swim and a swim in a moment. And honestly, it's probably his 3rd or 4th, 5th best event. I don't necessarily think the 400 IM is his best event. 200 IM is certainly a better event for him. He just doesn't kick out very well. He should be a beast long course meter 200 IM. And you'll see him evolve in some other events that are going to be, I think, over time, especially now with Sean Kelly over there, and now Ben's over there too. I think you're going to see him as he collaborates with Spain and Berkeley together. Some pretty fun things are going to happen with Hugo.
All right, since you've coached so many elite sprinters, we'll finish with this one. Who's the greatest sprinter in history?
Greatest swimming sprinter in history is Cesar Cielo.
Tell me why.
Because he's held the record this long, and he executed everything. When he was swimming with me, when he was swimming with Brett, when he was swimming with Brazil, he executed everything with 100% precision. He was the guy. Dean Hutchinson pointed out once when he was there for a camp, and he was trying to break a 15-meter record. You remember he said a 15-meter pool. He would not leave the pool until he broke this 15-meter record that somebody had broken his time. And he stayed there for an hour and a half trying to break the record. And I think he did break it before he left, but that's
until his toes are bleeding.
Yeah. And that's the story people need to hear. You don't become a great sprinter by all genetics, although he had a lot of genetics. But he was a 50-point 100 freestyle when he came to us. He wasn't a superstar when he came to Auburn, but he had a great stroke. He had a great mother and father that loved him, and so his performance wasn't based on his self-identity wasn't based just on swimming. He was a solid young man, and he had that sort of Latin passion that sometimes it takes that passion to do those kind of things. So I'm going with him.
He's got some passion. Cool. David, we could talk for hours, but we'll let you go. Appreciate your time. And we'll love to catch up with you again sometime soon.
All right, Bryan. Thanks, Luke. Okay.
All
appreciate
right.
you guys. Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you're enjoying Social Kick, tell your friends about it. And be sure to tell us what you liked by leaving a comment and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Social Kick. And you can find all of our content on our website,